Hi, in this tutorial I will give an overview of how you can use the temperature sensor TC-01 in Visual Studio and in C#. So in this tutorial I will first introduce this temperature sensor called TC-01, and then in order to use that temperature sensor you need a software package called ni.mx, which is a driver that you need to install in order to use that temperature sensor. And then I will provide some basic code examples. First I will provide a basic example where I read a temperature value from the sensor using Visual Studio and C#, and then we will extend this example using a timer so we can read temperature values, for instance, every second. So let's start with an overview of this TC-01 temperature sensor. So TC-01 is a temperature sensor from NI, or National Instruments, or Emerson. Emerson has recently bought the NI company, so they are now the owner of this company, and they provide this temperature sensor. So basically you can connect this temperature sensor using a built-in USB-A cable, and you can also use that temperature sensor in different programming languages like LabVIEW, C#, Python, MATLAB, etc. But in order to use this temperature sensor in one of these languages, you need to install this ni.mx driver. This is a free download that you can just download from internet and install. So basically we will use Visual Studio and C# in this tutorial. So here you see an overview of the sensor. So here is the device. So this part is connected to your computer using this built-in USB cable. So you just plug it into your computer and then you should be up and running. But first, of course, you need to install this .mx driver. And here you see the temperature probe that you just connect to this device, and then when the temperature probe is connected to this device, you just plug it into your computer and it should be up and running. So here you see the different parts. So one is this USB cable, number two is the TC-01 device itself, and then you can just plug in different types of thermocouple sensors like this example. But first you need, of course, to install this ni.mx driver in order to communicate with different DAC devices from this company, NI or Emerson. And as mentioned, you can use this sensor or other types of sensors from NI, Emerson, in different programming languages like Visual Studio, LabVIEW, Python, MATLAB, etc. So during the installation of this .mx driver, you need to select the proper parts. So make sure that you install the parts that supports the .NET framework 4.0 and 4.5. So make sure to just select these items and then just install the driver. So basically now I installed the proper ni.mx driver. I am ready to start using this temperature sensor and create an example in Visual Studio. So the first thing I need to do is just to put in the USB cable into my computer. So now I have put my TC-01 thermocouple temperature sensor into my computer in a USB port, and then this pops up. And here you have different options. Typically you want to configure and test your device first, so then you just can select this option, and then this NI Measurement and Automation Explorer will open, so I just click go. So MAX, or NI, Measurement and Automation Explorer, is a software that is part of this ni.mx driver that you can use to configure and test your hardware. And then you see here under devices and interfaces, here this NI USB TC-01 pops up, and it has a default name called dev1, and you have to remember this name because you are going to use that name in your C# code. You can also change the name here to whatever you like, but dev1 is typically the default name. You can also click here self-test, and then the self-test completed successfully. You can also open the test panel in order to test that this device is working as expected. So then this pops up, and then you just select the channel. In this case there are only one channel, so dev1 analog input 0, select this one, and then measurement type thermocouple, maximum and minimum temperature value from 0 to 100 degrees Celsius. There's the thermocouple I'm using is of type J, and then I just select built-in here, and then I can just click start, and then you see we get a proper temperature value here in this chart. So now we know that the temperature sensor is working as expected, and then we can start creating a basic example in Visual Studio and in C#. So let's start creating some code examples, but before we start I will just go through some basic information. When you create a new project in Visual Studio, you need to select this Windows Forms app and the .NET Framework template, because this driver ni.mx is so far not supporting the newer .NET 5, 6, 7 and 8. So you need to select this Windows Forms app .NET Framework template. And also in the next, so after you have clicked next there, you also need to select the proper version of the framework. So here you select .NET Framework 4.8. And the next thing you need to do when you have this Solution Explorer up and running, you need to right click under the references and add references, and then you need to add a reference to this DLL, which is basically the docmx driver. So you need to find this file on your hard drive. Typically is installed in this folder, and then just select National Instruments.docmx.dll and add it as a reference in your Visual Studio Solution Explorer. So now we are ready to start some basic examples. So let's start this basic example. I will just create a text box, a label and a button, and then basically when I click this button, read, I should read a temperature value from the temperature sensor here, and then I can hold on the temperature sensor, click read once more, and then you will see that the temperature value has been updated. So let's go to Visual Studio and create this basic example. So I open my Visual Studio, then I select create a new project, then I will get a list of available templates, and then I just select here desktop, C# language, platform, Windows, and then this template pops up. So make sure to select this template, Windows Forms app .NET Framework, not this template. So make sure to select this one, Windows Forms app .NET Framework, and then just select next. And here make sure to select the newest .NET Framework, which is 4.8, and then select a proper name of your application. I just name my application on project temperature sensor, and then I select a location. I just put it in a local folder on my hard drive, like this, and then just select create in order to create this new project in Visual Studio. So now we are ready to start creating our graphical user interface. So then here I just create a text box, a button and a label. So then I just search for text box, put in a text box here, I find a button. So when I click on this button, and the value that I read from the temperature sensor should be presented here. I can also put in a proper label on top here, like this. Then this is basically our graphical user interface, very basic and simple. Then of course you should have put proper names for your button, your text box and your label. So then let's start with the button. So then instead of button N, you can have the name read, so it says read. You can also change the name of the button. Instead of button 1, you can call it button read, like this. And here the text box, the default name is text box 1. I can call it txt temperature, like this. And then for the label, just change the name. So instead of the text label 1, I just type temperature, like this. And since this is in degrees Celsius, you can also put in a C, like this. So now we know that this should be the temperature value in degrees Celsius. And then next we need to start creating the code, because when you click this button, we should be able to read the temperature from this sensor into this text box. But first, before we start creating code, we just need to add this reference. So just on the references here, I right click, select add reference, then go to browse, and then just find the proper location for this driver, which is in this folder. So typically the default location is in this folder, program files, National Instrument Measurement Studio 2012.net, and assemblies, and current version, etc. So I can browse it once more, click the browse button, and then I go to this folder. So program files, National Instruments, Measurement Studio, this one, .NET, assemblies, and current, and then I find this one. So I just select this one, click add, and then just select it here and click OK. And then it should be added here in your project here. So this is the reference to this DLL. And now I'm ready to start creating the code. So typically when I click this button, I should be able to read the temperature and put it into this text box. So then I just double click here on the text box in order to create this event handler for this button. So this is the button event handler for this button. So typically you just create the code directly in here. You can also create a new method here for read temperature. So then I start creating a new method. I can just, because it will return a temperature value, typically a double, a name of the method, read temperature or something. This. Basically, this is a basic method that we are going to create the code for reading values from the temperature sensor. So in order to save some time, I just copy some code I made earlier, and then first we also need to insert the assemblies here, the namespace. I just remove the namespace that you don't need. So here you see it has already been included, is using national instruments.docmx. So this is the namespace that we need to include in order to use this temperature sensor in Visual Studio. And then here's a basic code example. So here I put the code into a method called read temperature. And first I just need to create a task, in this case an analog task. And I specify as channel, and I set up my specific channel like this. So here is the name of the device. As you remember from this Measurement and Automation Explorer, the default name was Dev1. You could have changed the name, then you just need to put a new name here. And it has one analog input channel, namely analog input 0. So this is the name of the device and the proper channel. And here is just the name of the sensor. You can call it whatever you like. I just call it temperature. And here you see the temperature range from 0 to 100 degrees Celsius. And then here you specify what type of thermocouple that you are using. I'm using a J-type thermocouple, which is the probe that comes in the package when you buy this TC-01 thermocouple. And here you specify the unit. In our case, we want it to have it in degrees Celsius and in range from 0 to 100 degrees Celsius. Then next we need to just start an analog single channel reader in order to read one specific value from the sensor. And then basically here I just use this read single sample method that is part of this DocMX driver package. And this method just basically read one value from the temperature sensor, and then I put it into this variable called temperature, and then I just return this temperature value in our method, and then I can just call our method here in this button click method. So here I just specify a variable temperature or something, and then I just use temperature equals and the name of our method, read temperature, like this. So now I have read the temperature sensor into this variable. Now I just need to present the value here in this text box. So then I just type txt temperature, which was the name of our text box, and then it's equal to this variable called temperature. And also I need to, since this temperature variable is a double and the text box is a text, so I just need to convert it to a string like this using toString. I can also provide some arguments there, because we don't want 10 decimals. Typically there's enough with 1 decimal for the temperature reading, so I can just type 0.0, meaning I will use 1 decimal in the reading of the temperature sensor like this. So basically that's it. We need to make sure that this is included using National Instruments.docmx. We can create a simple method for reading one temperature value from the sensor like this, and then in the button event handler I just create a new variable. I read the temperature value from this method called read temperature, and then I just put it into the text box with this line of code. So now I just save my application, go to the user interface. I can also change the title here. Instead of form 1, I can call it temperature sensor or something like this. So we have a proper title for our window. So then I just start our application. And now it's running. So now you see this is empty, but if I click on this read, you see I get a proper temperature value here, 24.4. If I hold on the temperature probe and click read once more, you see it will increase. I click once more while holding. You see it's starting to increase the temperature value here. And now I release the probe and wait some time, and then you see it should sooner or later drop to a lower value, because I'm not holding my fingertips around the temperature sensor probe like this. So basically this is how you use the temperature sensor TC-01 in Visual Studio and in C#. Typically we want to use a timer or something instead of clicking. So now I need to click this button every time I want to read a new temperature value. But if you're going to use this in an application where you're going to read temperature value, let's say every second, 10 seconds, every minute or something, and put the value inside a database or something, you should not need to click this button every time we want to read a new value. So then let's see how we can remove this button and use a timer instead. So I just close my application here, and then I find a timer. So this timer, I just double click on it, and then you see it pops up here, and the default name is timer 1. You can of course change it, but I just use the default name. So now instead of this button, I'm going to use this timer, so I just double click on it in order to create an event handler for the timer. So basically, then I can just copy the code that was previously in my button and put it in the timer instead, like this. And then here I can just specify how often I should read the values from the temperature sensor. So the default interval is 100 milliseconds. I can change it to 1000, meaning it will read a new value from the temperature sensor every second, like this. And the next, go back to code. I need to just start the timer when the application starts. So then here in the form 1 method, I just add a new line of code and use the timer 1 dot start. This means that the timer starts when the application starts, like this. Now I just save the code, and now let's start it. Now you should see here that a new value is updated every second. So now I don't need this read button anymore. So I can just close my application and just remove this one, remove the button, and remove the code like this. So now the code is happening inside the timer event handler, like this. And inside here I just use this method read temperature. So now we have created a new application where we are using a timer instead of a button. Then every second a new updated value here is put into the text box. And then now you can add more features to this application. You can store this temperature value in a database, you can plot it in a chart, etc. But basically this is how you use this temperature sensor TC-01 in Visual Studio. So then let's summarize. So in order to use this temperature sensor TC-01 in Visual Studio, we need first to install this docmx driver, and then in Visual Studio you create a new project, select this Windows Forms app.net framework template, and here in the next window that pops up you just select the framework.net framework 4.8, and then when the project has been created in Visual Studio, just go into the Solution Explorer, right click on References, and add this national instance .docmx.dll. Then you're ready to start create a basic code example like this with a text box and a button, and when you click on the button, a new updated value from the temperature sensor should be put here in the text box. But first you need to make sure that this namespace is included on top of your code using national instruments.docmx. And then you can create a method, for instance read temperature, that has this specific code. Basically you start creating a task on a channel, and then you select the proper settings in your channel. Make sure to use the proper device name. The default name is dev1, but you can change it in this measurement and automation explorer. And this temperature sensor has only one analog input, so you just here need to select analog input 0. Here you specify a name, you can specify whatever you like, for instance temperature. Here is the range from 0 to 100 degrees Celsius. Here is the temperature thermocouple type, which is in our case is J. Here is the unit, degrees Celsius, and then you just use this built-in method called read single sample in order to read a specific temperature value from the sensor and put it into a variable like this. And then in the button event handler, you just create a variable, use the method read temperature, put it into this variable, and then later convert this variable to a string and put it into the text box like this. So here you see the entire code for this application. Next, typically you want to use a timer for more continuous temperature readings like this, and then you can just remove the button and using a timer instead. So then you put the code into the timer event handler instead, like this. And here you see the entire code for this application. So basically here's the read temperature method, here is the event handler for the timer, and here you just in the form startup code you just start the timer like this. So basically that's it. So this tutorial have shown how you can use this temperature sensor called TC-01 in Visual Studio and in C#. Thank you and goodbye.